As Rubio walked away from peace talks yesterday, perhaps never intended that they should happen, the question today is terrifyingly simple. Is peace worth more than justice? That, in effect, is the choice currently being pressed upon the Ukraine by the Trump administration. And through a proposed peace plan, the United States has suggested Ukraine should surrender its sovereign territory, including Crimea and much of the Donbass, in exchange for a ceasefire that Russia has not actually promised to respect. J.D. Vance recently boasted in Agra in India that America had conducted an extraordinary amount of diplomacy to broker this plan. A plan that, according to his reports, grants Russia what it already occupies and asks Ukraine to give up what it cannot afford to lose. In return, Russia promises not to demand more, so far. That's not diplomacy. This is diktat masquerading as peace, but the plan appears dead on arrival. Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, abruptly pulled out of the London Peace Summit. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff skipped it altogether and is headed instead for a private meeting with Vladimir Putin. What does that tell us? It tells us that Washington has already lost faith in its own proposal, and perhaps that the true goal is not peace, but plausible withdrawal. And that is worrying, isn't it? Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Yulia Sviridenko, minced no words. We have reaffirmed a principled position. Ukraine is ready to negotiate, but not to surrender. Sviridenko is very clear about that, and all she's doing is repeating what Zelensky has previously said. This is not intransigence, it's integrity. Because accepting this plan would legitimize war crimes, reverse a decade of international law, and quite simply reward the aggressor. It would also pour scorn in the face of all those families whose sons and daughters have died in the service of the Ukraine military to respond to a neighbour's aggression and a neighbour's aggressive assault on their country. Let's not forget, Russia's war didn't begin in 2022. It began in 2024, or even I think in 2012 or slightly before, with the annexation of Crimea, with the invasion of Donbass by paramilitary agitators from Russia, one of whom, of course, would be the Wagner Brigade. That's the origin of this horror. To erase it now is to bless it. And Russia, far from playing the peacemaker, is unleashing one of the most devastating air assaults on Ukrainian cities in months. Within hours of Trump's ultimatum, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, all struck, apartment blocks shattered, children buried beneath rubble, mobile phones ringing beneath the debris in a desperate bid for survival. And Putin has the audacity, or at least the doppelgangers have the audacity, to talk about a truce that involves civilian not attacking civilian sites. In Kyiv alone, 9 people were killed, 70 injured, including 6 children and a pregnant woman. This is what Russia calls leverage. This is what Trump calls a prelude to peace. Even if Ukraine were to agree to this grotesque compromise, what then? There's no credible security guarantee. There's no provision for rebuilding shattered cities. There's no framework to prevent Russia from simply rearming and returning. As Bill Browder, a long-time Kremlin critic, has noted, Trump's plan is not peace, it's capitulation. And Ukraine's refusal is not obstinacy, it's survival. This isn't a frozen conflict. It's a boiling one, kept alive by Putin's belief that Western resolve can be bought and European Europe and Eastern Europe sold. And what of us? What of Europe? What of Britain, so-called West? If America pulls out, as J.D. Vance threatens, the burden falls to Europe. But without the US air cover, logistics and political unity, how long can Europe alone sustain the fight? And that must be the underlying question lurking in Putin's mind, or the Kremlin's mind, as Russia hemorrhages weapons and soldiers. More chilling still, if America not only retreats, but begins actively pressuring Europe to follow suit, through trade threats or diplomatic coercion, then we enter a new age as an America aligned, if not formally, then functionally, with Russia. Zelensky has said rightly, Ukraine will act in accordance with its constitution. He cannot surrender Crimea, nor can he surrender the regions in the Donbass. That means no surrender of Crimea. That means no legitimizing of Russia's brutal tactics. And perhaps more poignantly, to end this war, unless Putin is forced, not flattered to the table, there is no there is no progress. The attack on Kyiv was not a sideshow. It was the show. It was the proof in blood and fire that Russia doesn't want peace. It wants victory. And it wants a victory in an aggressive war that it began. And we in Britain and Europe and the West must decide, will we offer Ukraine only words, or will we honour the promise that borders cannot be withdrawn with missiles, that democracies cannot be broken with bombs? And the irony of this is that we're getting to the point where Russia can no longer continue. And Trump may call this a deal, but in truth it's no more than a demand. And Ukraine's reply has been both noble and necessary. We are ready to negotiate, but we will not surrender.